The house stood alone, shrouded in an eerie silence that seemed to echo through the empty streets. It was a large Dutch colonial, its architecture both grand and imposing, a relic of a bygone era. Its windows were like vacant eyes, staring out at the world with a hollow, unblinking gaze as if they had witnessed countless untold stories. Nestled in Amityville, this quiet town on Long Island, the year was 1975. The streets were lined with trees, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze, creating a serene and picturesque setting. The house was supposed to be a dream home, a place where memories would be made and laughter would echo through its halls. But it became a nightmare, a place where shadows seemed to move on their own and whispers filled the night. It held a terrible secret, carrying the darkness of many years. The walls seemed to breathe with a life of their own, holding on to the echoes of past tragedies. A family had been murdered there, and their spirits still haunted the home. The air was thick with their presence, a constant reminder of the violence that had once taken place. The new owners, a young couple with 3 small children, were excited to start their lives over. They saw the house as a fresh start, a place where they could build a future together. They didn't know the horror that awaited. The house seemed to welcome them with open arms, but beneath its charming exterior lay a darkness that would soon reveal itself. The Lutz family was filled with hope, ready for a fresh start. They had dreams of family dinners, backyard barbecues, and cozy nights by the fireplace. They had found the perfect house, large enough for their family, with a big yard for the children to play in, and the price was unbelievably low. It seemed too good to be true. They didn't hesitate to buy it. The deal was sealed quickly, and they moved in with high hopes and bright dreams, but they didn't know the true cost. The house had a history, one that was not easily forgotten, and it would soon make itself known. The house welcomed them in, seeming to promise happiness. But something felt off. There was a heaviness in the air, a sense of foreboding that they couldn't quite shake. The air was heavy, filled with a strange energy. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching their every move, waiting for the right moment to reveal its true nature. The family felt uneasy but ignored the feeling, determined to be happy. They brushed off the strange noises and the cold spots, attributing them to the house settling. Little did they know they were walking into a trap. The house had a way of drawing people in, making them feel safe and secure, only to reveal its true nature when it was too late to escape. As they unpacked their boxes and settled into their new home, the Lutz family tried to ignore the unsettling feeling that lingered in the back of their minds. They focused on the positives, the spacious rooms, the beautiful yard, and the potential for a bright future. The children played in the yard, their laughter filling the air and momentarily dispelling the sense of unease. They explored every nook and cranny of the house, their excitement contagious. Evenings were spent together as a family, sharing meals and stories around the dinner table. They tried to create a sense of normalcy, to make the house feel like a home. But strange occurrences began to disrupt their peace. Doors would open and close on their own, lights would flicker, and cold drafts would sweep through the rooms without warning. Family members started experiencing nightmares, vivid and terrifying dreams that left them shaken and exhausted. They would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, their hearts pounding in their chests. The parents discussed the strange events, trying to find logical explanations. They considered the possibility of faulty wiring or drafts, but deep down, they knew something more sinister was at play. Even the family dog seemed to sense the presence in the house. It would bark at seemingly nothing, its hackles raised and its eyes wide with fear. Despite the growing unease, the family tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. They continued with their daily routines, hoping that the strange occurrences would eventually stop. But the house seemed to grow more oppressive with each passing day. The air felt thicker, the shadows darker, and the sense of dread more palpable. Family members began to feel isolated, as if the house was driving a wedge between them. They found themselves arguing more, their tempers shorter and their patience wearing thin. The parents started to consider leaving the house, but the financial strain of moving again was daunting. They felt trapped, unable to escape the grip of the house. In desperation, they sought help from a priest, hoping that a blessing would cleanse the house of its dark energy. The priest performed the ritual, but the sense of unease remained. The hauntings grew more intense, the spirits more aggressive. The family could no longer ignore the signs. They knew they had to leave, but the house seemed to have a hold on them, making it difficult to break free. Finally, the family made the difficult decision to leave. They packed their belongings and fled the house, leaving behind their dreams of a fresh start. The house stood alone once more, its windows staring out at the world with that same hollow gaze. It had claimed another family, adding to its dark history. The town of Amityville returned to its quiet existence, the house on Ocean Avenue becoming a local legend, a cautionary tale of a dream home turned nightmare, and the house waited, biding its time, ready to welcome its next victims with open arms, hiding its true nature until it was too late to escape. The house on Ocean Avenue had a past shrouded in darkness, whispering of tragedy and pain. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, aware of its secrets, fearing its power. Years before, the house had been home to the DeFeo family. It was in this home that Ronald DeFeo Jr. committed a horrifying act, murdering his entire family. He claimed he was possessed by evil forces. The house was stained with their blood, their screams echoing in its silence. The Lutz family knew about the murders but dismissed it as a tragic event. They didn't believe in ghosts and thought they were safe. They were wrong. The house remembered. It was waiting, hungry for new victims. The house on Ocean Avenue was more than a crime scene. It was a vessel containing the darkest impulses of humanity, a place where evil could thrive, waiting to be unleashed. It wouldn't be long before the Lutz family learned the truth. The family settled in, trying to ignore the strange occurrences. Doors slammed shut on their own, footsteps echoed in the hallway, and voices whispered from the walls. The family told themselves it was the wind, but they were lying to themselves. One day the children's toys began to move, seeming to have a life of their own. They rolled across the floor, flew through the air, terrifying the children who ran to their parents. The parents tried to calm them, not quite believing it themselves. As the days passed, the activity intensified. The temperature in the house fluctuated wildly, objects moved mysteriously, and a strange odor of decay and death permeated the air. The family began to argue, on edge, as their dream home turned into a nightmare. One night, George Lutz awoke suddenly, feeling a cold presence in the room. He turned to his wife, Kathy, who was sound asleep, but something was different. Her face was contorted in terror, her body levitating above the bed. George was paralyzed with fear, unable to move, only able to watch in horror. The Lutz family was in denial. They couldn't accept what was happening. They tried to rationalize the events. They blamed them on stress. They blamed them on the old house settling. But deep down, they knew the truth. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The children were the first to break. They began to see things. Shadows lurking in the corners, faces peering through the windows. They heard voices calling their names. They pleaded with their parents to leave the house. The parents were torn. They didn't want to believe their children, but they couldn't ignore their fear. George began to experience strange physical changes. He became increasingly irritable and aggressive. He suffered from nightmares. He lost weight. He felt a constant chill. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He was being followed. The house was changing him. It was feeding on his fear. It was turning him into something he didn't recognize. He was becoming a stranger to himself. He was becoming a danger to his family. He had to get out. He had to get his family out. But how? The children's fear grew. They refused to sleep alone. They claimed to see a demonic figure. It had red eyes and a grotesque smile. It taunted them. It threatened them. It told them they would die there. The parents tried to comfort them. The parents were terrified themselves. The house seemed to respond to their fear. The supernatural activity escalated. Doors slammed shut with incredible force. Objects flew across rooms. The phone rang. When they answered, there was only silence. Or sometimes a deep, guttural growl. The family felt trapped. One night, Kathy was lying in bed. She felt something touch her. It was cold and slimy. She screamed. George woke up and turned on the light. There was nothing there. But Kathy could still feel it. It was crawling up her leg. It was reaching for her throat. George knew they couldn't stay. He called a priest. He asked him to bless the house. The priest arrived the next day. As soon as he stepped inside, he felt a cold shiver. He sensed an evil presence. He began to pray. The house responded with rage. The priest's prayers seemed to anger the unseen entity. The house shook. The lights flickered. A crucifix on the wall fell to the floor. It shattered into 1,000 pieces. The priest was thrown back. He landed hard against a wall. He was injured, but he was determined to finish the blessing. As the priest continued to pray, the demonic activity intensified. The temperature plummeted. The air grew thick. It was difficult to breathe. The stench of sulfur filled the air. The priest felt a searing pain in his chest. He knew he was in danger. He had to leave. The priest fled the house. He was shaking and covered in sweat. He told the Lutz family that the house was evil. He said it was possessed by a powerful demon. He warned them to leave immediately. He said their lives were in danger. The Lutz family was terrified. They packed their belongings. They fled the house. They left everything behind. They didn't care about their possessions. They only cared about escaping with their lives. They drove away from the house on Ocean Avenue. They never looked back.